Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson. Shealey, good morning. We are here. We are live. It is Saturday, July 24th. Can you absolutely believe that it is this close to the end of the year? I can't believe how fast this year is going, how this year is escaping all of us, but I am glad to be here. Amen. Let me see where my trusty co-host is. Let's see where Miss Robbie is. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
How are you? Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Awesome. We're going to talk this morning. I have been in these clubhouse streets. I don't know if you haven't gotten on Clubhouse yet, but we're gonna get you on there. When you get on there, you're gonna be hooked. I don't want to hook you yet.
Okay, I'm in these real estate streets. If it's anything like that,
Ooh, it's a new app, but it's been, very helpful, very informative, meeting some really great people. But I met someone on this Clubhouse app that I thought would be, great for this broadcast. As we talk about land and generational wealth and real estate, there's stories, Robbie, that have yet to be told, many stories that have yet to be told. And when I heard part of this family story, I was like, okay, we have to bring this to the broadcast. So I'm going to bring in Mr. Jonathan Burgess. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the broadcast. Meet Miss Robbie.
pleasure.
Hello, Miss Robbie.
Hi, pleasure.
Yeah, Mr. Jonathan Burgess. He's one of two. He's a twin, y'all. It's two of him. two of these brothers, the Burgess brothers out of California. And when I heard part of the story, I just heard part of it, Robbie, and just enough to know that, we needed to hear more. So, Mr. Burgess, you want to introduce yourself to our audience this morning?
Yeah, actually, I'll be happy to. So first of all, thank you guys both for having me. My name is Jonathan Burgess. I am one of the better known as, if you Google the Burgess brothers, that's where you get two of us as twins. But, I'm one of nine of the Burgess family, original pioneer family of California that dates back before California was even part of the Union, so 1849. And I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So when I look at, the state of California, I like to tell people we are California because our great-great-grandfather migrated to this place, left us autobiography, and just golden nuggets that we'll share and talk about today. So thank you for that. And I'm honored and pleasure to be here and share our story.
Yeah, you sent me like 20 images. So I'm hopeful that I'm able to put them on the screen, and maybe you can like walk us through, your family's journey. Where did y'all migrate from? So you ended up in California, but you came from somewhere. Where did y'all come from?
So, and this was all, written down in history. Our great-great-grandfather left us his autobiography. So, and it's funny, I recently found some documents where my dad had, my nephew had interviewed my father, interviewed him before taking a field trip. This was some years ago. He was in the 4th grade. But Africa, not sure which part, but landed in Virginia. And, our great-great-grandfather states he was born in Mecklenburg, Virginia, and raised in the house of his master. He was told that his parents died in his infancy, and he was raised, in his master's house. And that's written, his handwriting. And for those of you that know history, in Virginia, that was almost like the mecca of where slave ships started. When they touched, so what happened in Virginia a lot is a lot of the slave women were taken and forced to have children. And those slave children that were born, there's a term called born into bondage. They were born without parents and slaves for life. So I don't know if this was a case of our great-great-grandfather, but based on what I know about history, this was not uncommon. and those individuals would, they could learn to read and write. They were raised in the house, but yes, and a lot of times, well, I believe he got to California because he was a powerful, or, if you think of my last name, which is Burgess, the House of Burgess is a parliament, and, it is, of noble people. So I don't know where it goes past him, because he didn't say who his parents were. He was told that they died, but we started from Africa, but in Mecklenburg, Virginia was where.
So you guys landed in Virginia off the slave ships of Africa, landed in Virginia, and your what, fourth or what, maybe third or fourth great grandfather migrated out to out west.
Yeah, so my great great grandfather was born in Virginia. He talks about his family's being, about, finding religion, about the age of 19 or 20, being allowed to take a wife. Um, and when his master died, it was the McGregor family. Plantation was broken up. His wife and family, or children, the estates were sold. He landed himself in New Orleans or someplace else, he said, and was allowed to take another wife. At some point, when that slave plantation was broken up, his wife and children, as he states again, were sold on the blocks and taken to Kentucky. He was brought to California by Robert Bell, and that was about 1849. And of course, a lot of people migrated for the gold rush. And so, interesting enough, we've got this oral narrative, but also history. And so when you look at the documents, you can go to Ancestry or the federal census. I got it. Rufus Burgess is in the town of Coloma in 1849. And he was listed as a mulatto, or not white. The census later appeared to have been documented, and it shows him as being black. But he mined in the gold mines like a lot of slaves did, for their owners to pay for his freedom. And then those early slaves that got here, and there were free people that were here as well, but the early that came with their slave owners not only paid for their freedom, but they paid for the freedoms of their families. So he being here so early, he was able to pay for his family to be freed. Some of that's not written about, but other historians, well endowed with history, have been and share with our family that he was sold twice. And a lot of people that came to California didn't actually know that California was a free state. They didn't know they were free here. So they were still working in the mines for their masters. And even in some cases, there's one case, the Parker plantation, where those men came out and they were set free. The master went back to his home state. I don't know if it was Mississippi or Alabama, one of those southern states, and summons for him, said he left his slaves there. It made it. They went and jailed these men. They had the Parker plantation, Parker brothers, put them in jail, took their business, and it failed in habeas. I mean, at the federal level, they lost in state court. And they were going to send these men back into slavery because the governor of California and the laws of California said that if you were here before California is part of the Union, you were still property of the South. So a slave owner could actually have you sent back. And it was done. Those brothers were in prison. And as the story goes, abolitionists came in and intervened before they were sent.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burgess. I want to make sure people understand, because you're sharing kind of an oral history and then obviously some documentation, and there's clearly, a story here regarding stolen wealth and black gold. So maybe share exactly what has occurred and then backtrack. So for people who don't know.
Well, what has occurred, as far as the Burgess, no acknowledgement of the original pioneers that came here, could read and write, had land, acquired a massive amount of land after being freed. And so that's when we talk about, I think the show's talking about, it says black gold and wealth. We landed in 1849 here. My great grandfather was here in 1851, became the blacksmith of the town of Coloma. I've got written documentation, all his deeds, really of the land that he owns. And so what happened was, after the American weren't allowed to own land. I don't know. We're supposed to be free, but weren't allowed. We've got deeds. When the township maps occurred, we're not listed on the maps. So, for example, our family, we had already been in California since 1849. Can you hear me? Can't hear me? No?
I can hear you. Robbie, you can't hear him? Can you hear me, Robbie? You can't hear me?
No,
Log out. Log
I
out.
can hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's her.
I can
Log
hear
out, Robbie.
you.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep talking, Jonathan. I'm gonna
Okay. Our family had been here since 1849. When the first township map of Coloma was actually put out, it doesn't have one African American family on it. And so I asked, how did that happen? And nobody can tell me, but these were ways that land and wealth were taken. I've got newspaper articles and clippings and documents. 1878, our great grandfather discovered a gold mine, and it was written about in the Mountain Democrat that they found Mr. Burgess in his blacksmith shop crushing quartz. And quartz is the black rock that you find gold in. They asked him where he got it from. Travis Creek was the location, and they wrote, as a matter of fact, they took supervisory control of the site. They put over 100 extraction points on it. They estimated $65 per ton, and it produced flattering results. That's not written in anywhere in history, so that was truly wealth taken. And now it makes sense to me when I read the patent letters that I have from our great grandfather. When he was given deeds to his property, it said he could not own, and this is on a federal level, he could not own claim to gold, copper, or any type of mine. And I'm like, how can the federal government do that to somebody that's supposed to be a free state? So the people were right. When we look at, the people were right when they said, as a matter of fact, we took supervisory control of the site. At the federal level, the feds are saying on the patent deed that we have, unless they were counterfeit deeds, the patent letter, that he cannot hold claim to a gold mine. Almost unheard of. So these were all things that were done to take wealth. And, I've got deeds. When I look at the map, when I go to the park today, when I look at this state park where our family originated in 1849, there's no written history about us. Nothing. Prominent family, there's nothing written about us. I've got vouchers that I didn't share with you, Tamara, of my great-grandfather in 1885. He'd sold $60 worth of peaches to Old Sacramento in 1885. Now, in my math, $60 worth of peaches was a lot of money. And that showed just a lot of property. A lot of property.
Let's share. I'm gonna share my screen so that we can actually see some of the documentation that you were able to uncover specific to your family. Let's share my screen.
Sure.
So here's a picture of you and your brother. And who is that? Who is this a picture of?
So that's a picture of me and my brother. That is a picture of our great-great-grandfather. This is why the oral narrative is so important in the African American and Indigenous people of colors community. Anybody that's pretty much not white, because we passed on a lot of information by writing, and maybe some white families did too, but a lot of us couldn't read and write. I grew up as a child being told that was our great-grandfather, Rufus Burgess. And that, I come to find out later that is actually our great-great-grandfather. So that's a gentleman that was born in Mecklenburg, Virginia, and said to have basically had, grown up in the house of his master.
So this was your great-great-grandfather, two greats back.
Yes.
So you're not far removed at all from this. This is very close.
This is extremely close. And his autobiography. And so you can't tell on this picture. That letter there, or that document, I believe, is from the Pacific Appeal. It was an African American newspaper. And in 1862, our great-great-grandfather was appointed secretary treasurer of the AME Church in the town of Coloma. He was one of the colored citizens. The park today doesn't talk about this history. The fact that there was an AME Church there in Coloma. So that's what that article is referencing. An 1862 newspaper clipping where our great-great-grandfather, R.M. Burgess, was appointed secretary of treasurer for the AME Church in the town of Coloma.
Wow. What a paper trail. And this is?
These are some internal documents that I received from the state park before I think they really knew who we were. I'm not sure. And I think I got those documents by accident. But what it is it's a historian by the name of Paul Nesbitt. He worked for the state of California. And he's telling the state rangers at the time that they should be telling the truth about history. And he's making reference to the Burgess family and properties that were actually owned by the Burgess family.
Wow. Let me go to the next one. And then this is where you found their parents and their who is this? Whose
Right.
graves were these?
So, there's a lot of information on our family, and, I just account some of this stuff was done to hide, legacy and land. I was looking for, we had an Auntie Ida. I was told our Auntie Ida went past for white, never came back. And some books I seen Ida A. And then so I start looking around some of the people that were in pictures with our great-great-grandfather, because I figured Ida was his daughter. And I found a prominent family, the Tusher family. They came over in 1849 as well. One is actually in a picture with our great-great-grandfather. Well, the Tushers end up having a daughter that married into the Price family. And so I start looking at these siblings of these children. And I noticed that there was a Hannah Tusher with the, when I blew up her gravesite, it had her month and date that she was born. And when I looked at Ida, it just had a year that she was born. And so this became, to me, very interesting. Let me dig a little deeper. And I saw that Hannah was born like in 1848 or 1849. Ida was born in 1858. So I'm like, how could Ida be born after? And so what I was able to draw from a conclusion is that the black children, a lot of black children that were prominent families or not, were born under the names of prominent white families in the town of Coloma. And so Ida would have stayed in a house that was the Burgess house with a lot of land surrounded after her mother died. And so again, this was probably more of a way to take land. Ida died in 1912 in the town of Coloma. Now she had a daughter, which I believe passed for white and was sent to Washington. And that's the auntie that my father spoke about, that he didn't know who she was or where she went.
Wow.
I'm sorry. It's probably because I couldn't hear everything, but I want to make sure anybody watching fully understands. So, are you advising that your family, not only land but property, due to manipulation of records, was purposely stolen? And if so, what is the value of what was stolen at the time, and what would that be equivalent to today? Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's happened to a lot of families. In our case specifically, yes. I don't know. I'll give you one example. Our great-great-grandfather, Rufus Burgess, was buried under his slave named Nelson Bell. And he was said to have no heirs and $600 in real estate, $1,000 in assets that were auctioned off. The picture that you have before you is just showing Nelson Bell in his autobiography. He writes that he would live the remaining days in his house in the town of Coloma. And man had wronged him. And he's the only African-American man on the map in the township of Coloma in 1857. And so the fact that, the picture that we have, my mom used to always tell me, I think you're related to the Bells. Well, because we had the Bible and his autobiography, and it was written as Nelson Bell. You look at this map of 1857, and it's Nelson Bell. Well, Nelson Bell isn't on the federal census of 1849. He doesn't show up until 1860. And the reason he's on 1860 census is because he ended up on the map of 1857. And that story, the way that happened is he came over here and knew who he was. He was Rufus Burgess when he got here. And in 1852 or 51, Robert Bell sold him again and gave him the name Nelson Bell when he was sold. And that put him on the map. The reason he was on the map was so that Robert Bell could go back to Louisiana and claim his property if he so desired. But we lost the the Confederates lost the Civil War, and that went out the door. So if you look at this picture here, that is our great-great-grandfather in the middle there. That picture was taken in 1852. To the right is C.J. Johnson, and to the left far left is, I believe, Phil Tusher. So Tusher Johnson, and I forget who the other guy is, but and then Rufus Burgess in the middle. 1852, we've got documents that our great grandfather was brought here in 1851 and set free, Rufus M. Burgess. If you blow this picture up, it shows that blackface was actually placed on him to cover up his identity, because you guys saw earlier there was a mulatto man in the picture. That was our great grandfather. This man in this picture, he's an older man, obviously, and knowing that our great grandfather was brought over here in 1852, you know, that's not, you know, he was only 23 years old when he got here. So this is a much older man. That picture is in the museum in Cologne. It's been reinterpreted 3 times now since I've been on the case telling the story about our family. They keep reinterpreting this picture. But when you blow this picture up completely, you look right around his ear, you see a very light spot. And that was, if you ask me, a way to cover his identity, because this picture is of Nelson Bell, aka Rufus Burgess.
Your story gets so deep, and you know what? We're gonna have to have you back to tell the whole story. We have we have another a guest on the broadcast. We're going to be talking about the weeping time out down in Savannah and what that was all about. But this history, you know, our stories have to be told. So I thank you for joining us on this broadcast. You can definitely stick around. I'm speechless, Robbie.
No,
what has happened to his family.
Yeah, and I want to thank him for doing all this work and legwork, because it's especially relevant to the discussion today in terms of these reparations that are being reviewed and legal matters. And for anyone who's ever dealt with a case, you have to have records. You have to show. You can be completely right, but if you don't have records, and so what you're sharing is, in essence, that people willfully and purposely try to cover up records to steal land and or wealth. And that argument is that literally presents the perfect argument for reparations for, you know, for Black people and for descendants of chattel slavery in the United States. And then further, there was one other point I was going to make. Oh, I mentioned that I'm in real estate, and this market is just insanity right now in the entire United States and beyond. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of people who are not Black or predominantly white people parents are buying homes cash and then selling to their children, adult children, who are then financing. So what you're seeing is a double down of that accumulation of wealth from stolen property and land. Right. And so we need to pull these pieces together to understand really what's occurring and support the argument for reparations and hopefully justice for your family.
Robbie, and I agree with you, and my heart goes out. And so I think that our family should be on the forefront of the California reparations, but all because I'll tell you this, we were lucky if 1 in 10 slaves could read and write. And so education and being able to get those documents and knowing the value of them, a lot of descendants are not going to have documents. They're just not. And that stemmed from systemic issues that had occurred and transpired. And so when you look at our family, I'm blessed that he was able to read and write and, you know, taught his son and our children, and we maintain these documents. But if this happened to our family, we can document it. What do you think happened to the thousands of others?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna put a pin in it. We're gonna put a pin in it right here because our other guests are in the studio. But let me bring them into the broadcast. Miss Tia, she's gonna be joining us. Miss Lisa, Miss Natalie. Let's bring Miss Tia in. Good morning, Tia. How are you? Welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Let's bring Miss Lisa in and Miss Natalie in as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes. Welcome. The weeping time, y'all. I don't even think many people even know what it is. I'm going to give y'all the floor and let you go for it.
So Natalie You want to start us off, giving us some history about the whipping time?
Myself or Lisa, either one.
No,
Lisa,
go ahead, Natalie, please. Please.
All right. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having us. The history of the weeping time. In the beginning of March 1959, I'm sorry, 1859, the largest sale of human beings took place in the United States, and that happened right here in Savannah, Georgia.
Mhm.
It took place at the Tenbrook Race Course here in Savannah. There were 429. Sorry? There was 429 enslaved women, men, and children who were sold during this time. And the sale devastated 429 families. These lives and this auction happened to satisfy a gambling debt of the plantation owner, as well as to ensure the continued wealth of that owner. The history recorded that for the entire time of the auction, for the 2 days that it occurred, it rained unceasingly, and it rained until the very last person was sold, and that's how the name came about as the weeping time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to add to that, there were 30 babies. There were families whose lives, obviously, as Natalie's saying, were devastated. And, to fulfill this debt. And many of the descendants, and, from kind of researching and continuing to look at this, are rooted in this area, right? And so still continue to live in West Savannah, Greater West Savannah, Hudson Hill. And so, this is something that has directly kind of moved in this to this development of the situation as it now stands. And additionally, this whole corridor is unprotected. Right. So we see areas of Savannah that are historically protected everywhere. The whole entire downtown district, many of the other areas like Carver Village have managed to, seek that protection as a historical neighborhood. And yet West Savannah and Woodville and Hudson Hill, in this area where this happened, is not protected, right? And so that's just to kind of add to the history here. This was covered up until 2005. Really, this was not something that was well known until further research was done. So this was a hidden history and has recently been unearthed again. And so we're seeing many, many people and have been working with many specialists. Dr. Ann Bailey, who wrote a book on it. We've been talking and consulting with her, as well as, other Dr. Kwesi DeGraft Hansen has written an article in Southern Spaces, and others who have confirmed this is actually the place where this has happened and occurred. So just to kind of add to that history even a little bit more.
Yeah.
For those people who are, just jumping on now and following, y'all are all residents of Savannah, and are you kind of a collaborative effort to, give a little background on that?
Sure. So we are mostly residents of Savannah, and we are made up of a coalition of people. So you have just different organizations, just different people at the table, but this coalition is made up of Savannah residents and some of our allies, right? People that want to see this history be told and not be hidden as has it been done in the past.
So there is no marker, there is no monument, there is no statue, there is no recording whatsoever, acknowledgement of this
No,
Natalie, let Natalie take it.
there is a marker.
Yeah,
There is
there is a marker
that was placed on the side of the road. However, the land that we are speaking of, where this auction took place, over the years, it has been cut up by interstate, by roads. And so what we're trying to do is preserve this piece of property that remains a solid piece, and preserve it as the sacred ground that it is, and that it is, historical.
Understood.
In American history.
How large is the parcel? And someone just joined.
Yes, Rebecca Rose. Hi.
Hi, how is everybody?
Hi, Rebecca.
Sorry,
Good.
I may go back to just a static picture because I'm on my phone and I don't want to make you guys busy. But
Rebecca, what's your role?
I am just a supporter, and I came to this issue because I saw a great inequity and injustice playing out. I live on the west side, and I would drive through West Savannah specifically every day. And before I knew about the weeping time, I saw this property. I'm like, geez, why is that not being used to benefit this community? Like, who owns this? And like, that's how I actually came upon the controversy. So I had no idea. And I'm appalled and ashamed that I did not.
So who does own it? And how big is the land parcel?
Who wants to speak?
Well, the Savannah Housing Authority is currently owns it. It was under HUD, but it's owned by the Savannah Housing Authority. And it's been broken up from, I think, 18.75 acres, that specific parcel of land. And what is being sold is, I think, 12
acres. That's right.
Yeah. And someone is saying they can't hear us, y'all. Someone is saying I can't hear. So
yeah, I think Rebecca might be cutting out just a little bit. There are different portions of this land. It's been sectioned, and as Natalie mentioned, the highway 516 has been built through part of it. And, that was one of the concerns that I had originally. I went to the Weeping Time marker, and that this was in dispute when the marker was placed, that this was the, this was not the actual site, but this was just a very small portion of site. I mean, it's a triangle of land that is just like a very small corner park that has a marker placed on it on Augusta Avenue. And then, but, upon looking at records, the property goes far to the west, across the highway, across 516 from where the marker is, and then goes in. And again, it's 12 acres of plat that is available still, that has not been developed. And that's the land that we're really trying to preserve. And, paying attention to like what has not yet been destroyed and what is left.
It's actually not unusual that the highways were used to kind of divide and keep it. That's not surprising at all, because it's something that happens, all over the country. But what's fascinating, and to hear both of your stories, I don't know if you had a chance to hear Mr. Berg's story. His family was kind of, and many others, but he's been documenting that land and property and so on was purposely withheld from his family lineage, and he's got a lot of documentation on it. Obviously, that's fortunate, for him. But the other component of what you ladies are trying, to do, preserve, true history, recount and some type of reconciliation, and add value to what has occurred. Add value and even acknowledge kind of what has occurred.
Right.
So it's a fascinating. When you think about it in a larger perspective, you have this compensatory and monetary damage component, but then there's this emotional
Right.
and just punitive kind of damage that it really cannot even be measured. And until we, you know, reconcile this, we have so many problems these days among, you know, different peoples and races and so on. And we really need to be responsible. So your work is so valuable in that regard. And when you really add it together, I don't believe we'll have peace unless we reconcile these matters.
Exactly.
And they're both so, you know, they're both solid arguments for reparations.
Absolutely. Right. I feel the same way. And I really think, you know, people, you know, will come at us like, you know, this is a Black issue, or this is something that only affects this group of people. And, you know, my argument is absolutely not. That, you know, the healing of this is important. People need to go and see this history and, you know, understand what happened in this country. There's so much, you know, dissidence, and there's so much, you know, inability to face the truth of what happened. And then if we don't preserve these sites, that history is lost. And not only can, you know, the people who have suffered the injustice not heal, no one can heal.
No one heals. Yeah.
So what's on the site now? What is actually there besides the marker? What's there?
So the land that is in the land, the 12 acres that we're talking about, the marker is not on the 12 acres. The marker is across the street from the 12 acres. The 12 acres of land that we are talking about is just, right now, it's just land.
Yeah.
What's currently going on is that the city of Savannah basically is ignoring the citizens of the West Side communities who are opposed to placing the Salvation Army's homeless shelter and transitional housing to be built on this site. The land is, as we consider it, sacred ground. It is sacred ground, and the area, you know, as was said, that we're in a historically Black neighborhood. It is an impoverished neighborhood. It definitely needs some form of economic driver in the community. And the historic nature of the Weeping Time provides that opportunity, we believe, much better than the Salvation Army placing their homeless shelter and transitional housing on this land. Not to mention that the Salvation Army also owns land in Savannah, acres of land on another part of Savannah, but yet they're coming to purchase this parcel of land. The Housing Authority is offering it to them for a fraction of the assessed value.
That's right.
So that's also devaluing the community as a whole, as well. The Salvation Army has petitioned the city of Savannah for a special use permit. And this special use permit would enable them to relocate their shelter and their transitional housing there. We have voiced, you know, and expressed, you know, that this is not what the residents want to happen in the community. And the other issue is there's no services there for the Salvation Army constituents. There's no services in the community whatsoever. You're also, where the Salvation Army currently is with their shelter, is located across from a high-rise building where they could literally just build up if they wanted to. And they're also located in a more central area of downtown Savannah. So they have access to more bus lines, more schools for their constituents' children to attend. When you move them to this particular sacred ground, it will not even help their constituents because it's going to move them further from the services that they need. It's going to limit their transportation because there's only 1 or 2 bus lines running through that area. And then in that area, there's one medical clinic that struggles just to serve the community that's there right now. So when you're talking about bringing in an indigent population, that's going to affect the healthcare that the residents of that community receive. It's going to affect the schools because there's only going to be those schools, the 2 schools. There's an elementary school and there's a high school option right there. There's no other school option. When they're at their current location, there's a couple elementary schools to choose from and a couple high schools to choose from. So the strain that's going to be put on this community that's already burdened, that already needs services, that already needs a grocery store, that already needs these economic drivers in the community. This is not a good move. It's not a good idea. It doesn't benefit the constituents of the Salvation Army, and it definitely doesn't benefit the residents of the West Side
How
area.
can people find you? Like, what is the name of the coalition? Are you on social media? Is there a site? Are you on Twitter? Because we want to encourage people who are watching to follow you, to support you, to maybe tweet at the Salvation Army, tweet at the Savannah Housing Authority. You know, say we support the Weeping Time Coalition to protect these 12 acres and utilize this from a community asset-based development, you know, with the historic nature of it. It's terrible. We see this over and over, these toxic nonprofits who are elected officials cater to. You know, I mean, selling it at a discount, you know, to something that's going to keep people that not even connected well when there's other options, ignoring the historical relevance. It's just really unfortunate. So please, where can people find you and follow you?
So we're on Facebook, and it's the Weeping Time Coalition, just what it is. We made it simple. Please, we meet every Sunday at 4:00 at Solomon Temple off Augusta Avenue. We ask for people to join the coalition, come to our meetings. We ask you to find ways to donate PayPal and Cash App. We just ask that you continue to share. Join the group so you can share what's in the group out into the public. Again, inviting people to come to the meetings. We are not turning anyone away. We're asking everyone to come to the table because our history, for what we know, is trying to be erased.
And I did share the link in the chat. So I did put the Facebook group link in the chat.
Hopefully Tamara can put it on the show. So perfect. Okay. You know, I want to acknowledge, because there was commentary before about being allies and co-conspirators and supporters and, you know, whose history is this? And I see, and I'm sure everybody else does, it's not only me. There's so many people responding publicly that is going on camera with this kind of white rage to a degree, and it's because we don't really understand our history. We don't tell the truth about history. We don't acknowledge it. We suppress it. We hide it. So these people that are angry, they don't even really know what they're angry about because they don't know the full story. I mean, seriously, and maybe if we, you know, were more responsible, you know, and corrected this, we wouldn't have so much discord, you know, amongst people in general. You know, in Atlanta and Savannah, shame on Savannah, shame on the city elected officials of Savannah. That is such a beautiful city to do this, not acknowledge this preservation in your efforts and not listen to the residents who live there and starve out communities. Continue to do this, even knowing now today. You know, in Atlanta, we have the underground over at Little 5 Points. Most people don't know that was a slave market. People were auctioned off at the MART, where the MARTA station stands now. And there's no acknowledgement of it. People are walking around, you know, having a cocktail or whatever at a slave market where people were auctioned off and nobody knows. Is that what Savannah's going to do? I mean, and I'm sure this is close to your heart, Tamara, because you're from Savannah.
Oh, you're muted.
Absolutely. It breaks my heart because I am, you know, native. I'm from Effingham County. Like my family is still there. I grew up in the city. I'm a Sol C. Johnson High School graduate. It breaks my heart to hear, you know, that this is happening. And what do you want to see on that property? Like if you know, you always got to have a solution to this. What do you want to see on that property?
I think the leaders and the coalition itself, the one thing I love about this coalition is that we want to come together and say as a coalition what should be on this property. We don't want people spouting out what's going to be on this property, because at the end of the day, when those people were sold, guess what? They had no voice there. You know, they had no one there. So this coalition is saying we want everyone to come together so that we can be the voice to say this is what this land will be used for in its highest and most, edifying use that we can think of as a coalition, as a group of people that are saddened. We're saddened. We're smiling because we have the strength of not just the skies of but our ancestors. We have the strength of them saying, this happened to us. Can someone speak for us? And so I feel that's where we are on that journey as far as what will go on that land. Yeah.
Are they listening though? Are the city officials, the mayor, the city council, are they listening to y'all at all?
Well, who wants to share?
They're not. They haven't listened to us. If anyone has read some of the report, I'm gonna just say that they said that they were considering giving us a spot on the land or something of that nature and all kind of stuff like that. And myself, along with this coalition, have reached out. We've had meetings that have not been, honored. We've had requests that have been turned down, open records that have not been honored. So as a coalition, as we just know, they're not listening to us. They're not listening to the people of West Savannah.
Are there any nonprofits or like large scale organizations like the NAACP that are supporting these efforts who can help champion?
We've sent what we're doing right now is we're letting people know. It's amazing how much since the history's been hidden. We don't know. I'm recently finding out about this property. It just we are reaching out to those organizations, the NAACP, different organizations all throughout Savannah and outside of Savannah, throughout the state and also regionally. This is part of the nation's history. This is the largest sale of human beings in the United States of America. This isn't just a Savannah thing. It's not just a Georgia thing. It's not just a Southeast thing. This is in the history of the United States. And so we want people to join. That's why we appreciate this opportunity to let people know about it, to go on to our Facebook page at the Weeping Time Coalition, or you can go to our website, which is weepingtimecoalition.org.
Yeah, it's weepingtime.org. Yeah.
I'm sorry, weepingtime.org. Very simple.
Who are your elected officials? Who's in charge locally at the council level? What are their names? If you could send over their phone numbers, their emails. Is a petition being considered? And who are the larger responsible elected officials as well?
Okay.
When you go on our site, I believe the petition is there. Am I right, Ms. Tia?
Yes, it is.
So you can go on our site and sign the petition. We do have a petition already.
Do we have a link to the petition that someone can post? Because we should post it on the chat as well.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the city of Savannah has our mayor's Van Johnson. I'm trying to remember the councilman's names, so bear with me. We have 8 other council members, aldermen.
Whose
different
district is this one? Whose district does the land fall in? And is her information or his information on the petition?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. Right. That's Alderwoman Lanier.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Renetta Lanier.
Yeah.
Her information is not on this current petition. So I want to make sure we put out the right information. But what we can do is once we're done, we can send you over all of their names and numbers or something to Tamara, and that way you can have it. But Miss Lanier has been very vocal about her district. She's been fighting very hard for her district. She's been taking notes. She's a supporter. Yes.
Yeah. So we have the older woman who's been supporting it and actually has been attacked in the media as having conflict of interest for trying to protect this land. So she's been under fire. She's basically been silenced on this issue in many ways. We have two other older women that have been very vocal about trying to protect this land. So we basically have three, with a fourth who is quiet, but also votes in line with protecting this land. So we lost the vote of 5-4, 4 for it, 4 against it, and the mayor voted to grant the special use permit for the Salvation Army, right? So
he voted against it as well.
Let me ask you something. The mayor, I mean, is this a Caucasian individual, a person of color? And do you feel as though there may be some conflict of interest with the Salvation Army lobbying and perhaps campaign contributions to the folks who are in favor of the Salvation Army project on this historic land?
So I would say that we should not answer that.
I think there's all kinds of speculation. We don't know. That's really what it is. It just what it comes out down to is that it's not adding up and it doesn't make sense. When you look at who's supposed to benefit, they're not benefiting. The community's not benefiting. The constituents of the Salvation Army not benefiting. So who is?
What I see a lot in Atlanta city politics, and this has been super helpful, is oftentimes a campaign contribution comes from a nonprofit and/or business, and that project gets pushed through. That's what I see in Atlanta consistently. I have no idea what's happening in Savannah, but it certainly sounds odd given your local supporters, and you have support in the community is in favor of one thing, but for some reason it's going in a complete other direction that doesn't seem logical or beneficial to the community.
Right. I can add one other piece of information to this puzzle. The mayor, the current mayor, was the former alderman representing District 1 for 16 years prior. So this agreement, may have been worked on earlier. We don't know, but we do know that the mayor was the representative.
So wait a minute. Let me so basically the current mayor, which is Van Johnson, was the alderman for the district where the Weeping Time.
Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely that.
And now that he is mayor, he has voted to grant this special permission to the Salvation Army, but he didn't do that. He didn't do that while he was the alderman. He didn't push this or allow this to happen while he was alderman. But now as mayor, this has been allowed.
That's correct.
We're going to continue to follow this story.
I
think we just found the rabbit hole. Yes. Mr. Burgess, I want to thank you for joining us on this broadcast. All the way in the great state of California. I want to thank you, ladies, for joining us right here in the great state of Georgia. Our stories must continue to be told. We must continue to speak truth to power. We will not shy away from pushing and holding people accountable. And our ancestors are, they're not going to let this happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. They hear us. They hear us, and they see the great work that we're doing. So I want to thank you all for joining us on this broadcast. Miss Robbie, I didn't know this thing was going to be on fire like it was, but we are definitely going to have you guys back. We're going to continue this conversation as this starts to develop. I am running for office, so I am paying attention to everything that is happening in the great state of Georgia and in California. I am a reparationist. I do believe that until we heal, America has to heal these wounds. And until we heal these wounds, we're going to continue to be divided. So I just want to thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can find Ms. Robbie Caban at robbiecaban.com. Every week, we give voice to issues, activists, and activism. You can support this broadcast by going to tamarashealey.com. We work alongside churches in fighting for reparations. So you can support us at Reparations Sunday georgia.com. And if you are a descendant of chattel slavery here in Georgia, there's a bill, HB 541, in the Georgia legislature that addresses the impact of slavery and Jim Crow on those who are descendants of chattel slavery in the state of Georgia. Support the movement, HB541.net. And again, I am Tamara Johnson Shealey, your candidate for the United States Senate. So I want to thank you guys for joining us on this broadcast. We're going to go out with our commercial, and then we will definitely be having y'all back.
All right. Thank you, Tamara. Thank
you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Tamara for Georgia, where we give voice to issues, activists, and activism. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey, your candidate for the United States Senate. I'm a progressive Democrat that believes that reparations will make America great. It is time that we bridge the divide in this country. Please go to my website. That's www.tamaraforgeorgia.com. Please join me every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here for Tamara for Georgia.